Hello there, I'm Alice, a 32-year-old woman currently 9 months pregnant. Today, my husband and I are driving to his family's home, a mere 30-minute drive from our apartment. It's a short trip, so we often visit 2 or 3 times a month. This time, we're especially excited because my mother-in-law is baking her famous apple pie. My mother-in-law is a sweet lady. After losing her husband last year, she was really down and didn't know what to do. But she's recovered now and is eagerly waiting for the birth of her grandchild. However, not everyone is thrilled about our baby. My sister-in-law, Brianna, is one of them. According to my mother-in-law, Brianna married 6 years before us, but hasn't been able to conceive. She even started fertility treatments 2 years ago, but still no baby. With all the pressure, she's become quite irritable lately. My mother-in-law advised us to avoid Brianna as much as possible, so we usually visit when she's not around. But today, to our surprise, Brianna showed up unexpectedly. Well, long time no see, Alice. You've put on some weight, haven't you? You're not just lazing around at home because you're pregnant, right? You look like a seal, all round and ready to roll down a hill, she said sharply. I was dumbfounded by her immediate and harsh remark. Hey sis, how can you say something like that right off the bat? She's 9 months pregnant. Of course, her belly's going to be big. You're going to make enemies with pregnant women all over the world talking like that. My husband quickly jumped to my defense, leaving me speechless. Oh please, I'm just thinking about Alice. It's tough if a pregnant woman gets too heavy, you know. I just want Alice to be aware of her responsibilities as a mother, Brianna claimed, pretending to be concerned. I knew arguing back would only cause more problems. Thank you, sister-in-law. Yes, you're right. I should be more careful. I chose non-confrontational words, but she huffed and said, just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you can be lazy. Start cleaning this house right now. You're lacking exercise, right? You can at least do that much. She handed me a broom and dustpan, demanding I clean. However, after being scolded by my mother-in-law and my husband for harassing me, Brianna sulked and secluded herself in an upstairs room. I'm sorry, Alice. She just showed up all of a sudden. I told her to leave. My mother-in-law apologized with a regretful look on her face. It's fine, mother-in-law. I'm not bothered, I reassured her. I'm sorry, Alice. That's just how my sister is, my husband added. Despite the tension, we spent a pleasant time together, enjoying the apple pie and sipping tea. We called out to Brianna, but there was no response. Although we were worried, she never came down in the end. However, I had no idea that a shocking incident would occur just a few days later. I went to my in-laws' house alone to speak with my mother-in-law. As I wondered why the front door was unlocked, I discovered Brianna in the living room. Sister-in-law, what brings you here? I heard from mother-in-law that you had to work today, I said, surprised. I wasn't in the mood, so I took the day off. I was surprised to see you here. You disrupted my cleaning last time. Now please get back to work, she said, thrusting the broom and dustpan back at me. To avoid any trouble, I decided to clean as much as I could. But that day, I was feeling discomfort from early morning, and during the cleaning, I began to feel pain in my stomach. Just as I thought of taking a short break, Brianna kicked my stomach, causing my water to break. The pain escalated, and I fell to the floor. Ah, it hurts. Somebody, please help. I cried out, taking my mobile phone from my pocket and quickly dialing my mother-in-law. The baby is in trouble, I managed to say before losing consciousness. When I woke up, I found myself in a hospital bed with an IV in my arm and my body wrapped in an electric blanket. Where am I? What about my baby? I tried to sit up, but the pain in my abdomen stopped me. My stomach, which was supposed to be large, had shrunk, and I was shocked. I pressed the nurse call button, and when the nurse arrived, I asked what had happened. Apparently, my water had broken, and I had to give birth via emergency cesarean. The baby was small and in an incubator but was in good health. My mother-in-law and husband, who had rushed to the hospital, were informed by the doctor. Their faces were red with anger. I decided to visit the baby once I felt better and tried to sleep as much as possible to recover quickly. However, the next day, an unbelievable pair showed up in my hospital room. My sister-in-law, who had kicked me, and her husband. They entered without knocking, their impudence making me frown. When they suggested, "We'll pay you, let's settle this," I felt a chill run down my spine. When I refused, they lashed out at me with every offensive word they could think of, directed at my tired face, still recovering from the cesarean operation. Thinking about how my daughter had to go through such an ordeal because of these people, something inside me snapped. A settlement? Are you kidding me? You must be joking. I'll ruin your life, I declared, my voice shaking with anger. Enraged by my words, they continued shouting. "What are you saying? We're offering a solution with money. Aren't you thankful, Alice? Didn't your parents teach you to obey your elders? We're telling you to settle, so just agree quietly," my brother-in-law added, joining in the argument. Forgetting it was a hospital room, our voices escalated until the door suddenly swung open. "I've heard everything. I'm sorry, but I have absolutely no intention of settling." My husband, tall and imposing, stood at the door, his deep voice resonating through the room. The two who had been so confident moments before were now taken aback. "Ah, long time no see, Finn. It's a coincidence to meet you here," my brother-in-law stammered, his face tense. "It truly is a coincidence. I didn't expect to meet you here, nor did I expect to hear such words from you. I would appreciate an explanation. We were all in the room when you said it, so there's no room for any excuses," my husband responded, his fury barely contained. "Don't be so angry, Finn. It's not like we had ill intentions. We just feel bad for what we did to Alice. That's why we're offering money, hoping to settle this out of court," my sister-in-law explained, her voice trembling. But my husband's fury didn't subside. "The one who decides whether this will be a settlement or not is Alice, not you. Besides, do you think this is a situation that can be solved with money? Alice had an emergency C-section, and the baby is in an incubator. You endangered both their lives. Do you even understand that?" My husband exploded, his emotions getting the best of him. I also couldn't forgive them just because they were throwing money at us. I agree with my husband. No amount of money can make this right. You will face the consequences of your actions, I said firmly. It seemed like my sister-in-law assumed that throwing money at us would make us forgive them, but this situation was far more serious. Thankfully, both my daughter and I were fine, though she was in an incubator. Had there been any mistake, the outcome could have been much worse. My sister-in-law seemed entirely oblivious to this reality, and I suspected my brother-in-law felt the same. At my words, my sister-in-law flared up and raised her voice. "What do you mean? This is all because of her. She knew I couldn't get pregnant, and yet kept rubbing her belly in front of me." "Was that a jab at me?" she shouted, her face red with fury. "I was furious. That's why you did what you did. To make sure I never do anything like that again. How ridiculous. I hadn't met you often since I got pregnant, and every time you saw me, you would go into your room and not come out. So how did you see me rubbing my belly?" I retorted, incredulous at her excuse. No matter what she said, it wouldn't erase what she had done. "I understand that you're struggling, but that doesn't justify doing something like this to Alice. No matter the reason, endangering a life is never acceptable," my husband explained, stating the obvious. But they both looked elsewhere, not even trying to listen to us. It seemed like they wanted to get this over with as soon as possible. Seeing the two of them show no remorse, I felt my condition worsen. "Are we done here? I just had surgery and I'm not feeling well. If you continue to cause a ruckus, I'll call the police," I warned. Arguing wasn't going to resolve anything, and dealing with them was too much for me while I was still recovering. After my husband kicked them out, I sighed heavily. Fortunately, my husband had recorded their conversation, giving us solid evidence. My mother-in-law was furious about what her daughter had done, endangering my life and her grandchild's. We decided to press charges against my sister-in-law. We filed a complaint with the police, and my sister-in-law was taken to the station. Through a lawyer, we began negotiations, but my sister-in-law insisted I'd done nothing wrong. This woman has been flaunting her pregnancy in front of me, causing me emotional distress while I struggle with infertility. She's not innocent either, so she should be open to a settlement. At first, she was eager to pay any amount, but then she began claiming her innocence, suggesting we both were at fault. She had been intimidated by my husband at the hospital, but now, determined to avoid paying, she put up a stubborn fight. However, she had no idea that our conversation in the hospital room had been recorded. When the evidence was presented, both their faces turned ashen. Even with such clear evidence, you still claim you're innocent? I'm afraid that won't fly, my husband said firmly. After enduring their insults and refusing to agree to a settlement, my sister-in-law, in anger, flung a cup of cold coffee at us. Thankfully, it was cold, so we weren't burned. Their outrageous behavior and language resulted in additional charges, forcing them to increase the compensation amounts. Trying to calm his infuriated wife, my brother-in-law left the office with her. Given the assault charges and their behavior, the amount we demanded became substantial. When we told my mother-in-law what had happened, she looked deeply remorseful. I'm so sorry for what my daughter has done. There's no need for you to agree to a settlement. I'll make sure she faces the consequences, she apologized tearfully. I couldn't help but feel incredibly sorry for her. In the end, my sister-in-law was ordered to pay hefty compensation. Shocked by the amount, she called me repeatedly, insisting we reduce the amount because we were both at fault. I couldn't comprehend how she could argue this after all she had done. No matter how many times you call, the answer remains the same. We have no intention of reducing the amount or agreeing to a settlement. Honestly, your calls are becoming a nuisance. Please stop, I snapped at her. This caused her to lose her temper, and unbelievably, she barged into my apartment. Hey, you're there, right? I know you're in there. Get out here now, coward, she shouted, pounding on the door. I was resting on the sofa, still in pain from my surgery. What on earth are you doing? Is everything okay with you? Your shouting is disturbing everyone else. Please stop, I yelled back, but she continued to bang on the door. It was past 8 p.m., and there were elderly people and families with babies in the apartment. Of course, my husband was still at work and hadn't returned home. Since I got discharged from the hospital, I had been visiting my daughter every day, feeling unwell and now dealing with my sister-in-law's unannounced visit. I was at my wit's end. No matter how many times you come here, my mind won't change. Please don't come here anymore, I said, fighting back despite feeling unwell and pale. But my sister-in-law was desperate for a settlement, ignoring my concerns. I didn't do this because I wanted to, you know. It's because of your intrusions that things have come to this. It's presumptuous of you to get pregnant before me. Shouldn't you have been more considerate and waited to get pregnant after us? She ranted. It seemed she saw pregnancy as some sort of competition. I don't think pregnancy is a competition or that it's more honorable to get pregnant first. But for my sister-in-law, who has struggled with infertility for many years, it seemed like she viewed pregnancy that way. Everyone has different values, I thought, exhausted by the ordeal. But that's no excuse to hurt others. I understand you're upset about not being able to have children, but that's no reason to hurt anyone. I cannot forgive you for putting my daughter in danger. For that, you will be held responsible. Above everything else, the fact that she had endangered my daughter was unforgivable. Just then, the sound of sirens could be heard outside. It seemed someone in the apartment had reported the disturbance. Well, I suppose if you're banging on someone's door and yelling at this hour, it's inevitable that the police would be called. What do you mean the police are here? Open the door. You have to hide me, my sister-in-law pleaded. Despite her pleas, I had no intention of hiding her. The police arrived at the apartment and began questioning her. I explained the situation from my perspective. Just at that moment, my husband returned home, and I filled him in on what had happened. Considering everything that had transpired, my husband told the police everything, and they took my sister-in-law away. That night, My brother-in-law called to tell me he was divorcing my sister-in-law and asked me not to involve him in the issue, a rather self-serving request. Apparently, one of my husband's colleagues had been at the hospital where I was admitted and overheard my brother-in-law's conversation. When he got to work, gossip spread among the female employees, and my brother-in-law was looked down upon. The situation worsened, and somehow the story reached the HR department. Realizing he couldn't talk his way out of it, he confessed everything. He was then told that someone like him couldn't stay at the company and was being transferred to a regional office. I can't deal with her issues anymore. If any more problems arise, I'll be fired. So please leave me out of it, he said before hanging up. I haven't heard from him since. Afterward, we received substantial compensation from my sister-in-law. To ensure she would never come near us again, we changed our phone numbers and moved away. Even if she ran out of money and needed help, she wouldn't know where to find us. A few months later, my daughter was discharged from the hospital. She didn't have any lingering effects and was growing up healthy. Rumor has it that my sister-in-law was in substantial debt. At first, she moved from friend to friend, but she never contributed to living expenses and stayed too long, so they kicked her out. Now, with no place to live and no money, she is working part-time to pay off her debt.